Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. I wanted to do an episode dedicated to another Parker Publishing book. As you know, if you've followed the podcast, I've gone over 25 books from Parker Publishing. These are lost and obscure spiritual books, many of them written in a very similar style. Oftentimes they would make up a new word for a standard concept and then sell it in a certain way. I love the writing. I love how it was edited. It had a certain style that very unique to the time it was written. For instance, we've talked about telecult powers, things like that in particular. Today I wanted to read from a book called The Magic Power of Pragma Psychics by Tom C Lyle. There is no information that I could find about Tom C Lyle except on the book jacket. When I looked it up on the internet, I found nothing else. It says Tom C Lyle dared to look behind the veil of psychic mysteries that others shuddered to even approach. For over 40 years, he steeped himself in forbidden learnings and philosophies until the day he hit upon the greatest mind power secret of all, Pragma Psychics. An accomplished biostatistician as well, Mr. Lyle certainly ranks as one of the most daring psychic investigators of our time. Pragma Psychics promises to reveal the forbidden psychic power secrets known and used by many of the greatest adepts of all time. Lyle begins by saying Pragma Psychics is learning, in its most important sense. If what you are doing is familiar and comfortable, the truth is you are not really learning. The performance of a feat very unfamiliar to us seems like an act of magic. Such an essence of mystery is due solely to the strangeness and unfamiliarity. When we come to understand just how such a feat is done, it loses its mystery and becomes familiar. This period of transition from strangeness to familiarity is the true essence of learning. Familiarity breeds contempt. It also produces boredom, which in turn causes fatigue, with or without physical exertion. Yet we are ever seeking new, exciting, and challenging experiences despite our hesitance to meet anything new or strange. Our prime obstacle in meeting the unfamiliar is lack of confidence. One using Pragma Psychics can enjoy and savor all of the newness and challenge of every experience, since they can act in complete confidence that their creative powers are ready to deal effectively with every confrontation. They plan with full knowledge that an exhilarating and fulfilling victory will be theirs. This is no blind bravado, no simple expression of willpower, nor is it a denial of facts as they really are. The principles of Pragma Psychics provide a key to all psychic and cosmic phenomena, the forces of which have motivated all such events throughout history. With an understanding of these principles of Pragma Psychics, you will turn on psychic creative powers, transforming you into a super being, a member of a group composing less than 2% of the Earth's population. Throughout the evolution of Pragma Psychics, it has controlled and directed activities among masses of mankind for many centuries. In every generation, there have been those who learned or were taught these principles which turn on psychic powers. The reward from Pragma Psychic powers. Through the Pragma Psychic powers you will learn about in these pages, you will find that automatically you're able to attract money and wealth, influence the thought and attention of others, mentally visualize and predict future events, set into operation healing rays to repair and revitalize your body, open your conscious mind, an ever-flowing stream of superpower support and personal guidance, transform your surroundings and living conditions to meet your fondest dreams, even exceeding many of them, generate the luck and control to win sweepstakes, score crushing upset victories, and confound all of the experts. You will design a talisman in your own individual pattern, which will automatically set in motion the forces and the influences needed in your life. It will implement powers and successes beyond any which your intellect might scheme or desire. Reveling in the mainstream of your psychic powers, once they're turned on, will provide an unlimited choice of exciting and challenging adventures. Wealth, health, security, and guidance will pour into your life when you once clear your inner channels for these blessings through Pragma Psychic initiation. The special powers and virtues planted with you at birth spices, and seasonings which make you an exciting individual will unfold and bloom in your life when the growing warmth of our new mysticism is directed upon them. Anxiety, tension, and fear are all residues of present fallible processes of reasoning and decision-making. Dynamic tension exercises of cosmic isometrics will develop decision-making processes that guarantee infallible reasoning and automatically eliminate the slightest possibility of the negative emotion harming you. This shows you how to gain and use the 8 great powers of Pragma Psychics, which include the magnet of wealth and abundance, cosmic healing ray, the generator of eternal youthfulness, instant recall of ancient wisdom, psychic control of others, the gift of prophecy, the psychic use of telepathy, and eternal cosmic counsel and guidance for complete success. Pragma Psychics is a term descriptive of a way we learn and develop our basic philosophy of life. What we fundamentally believe life should involve are moral standards, religious convictions, and social mores which guide our activities are the result of evaluation, selected and established through a pragmatic learning process. Based upon value standards we acquire as children, we choose, sort, and select ideas and concepts presented to us during our formative years. Many possibilities are rejected out of hand when first impression conflict with a preconceived conviction. Today's amazing progress in all fields is due primarily to a shift in pragmatic system of learning. There is a definite trend away from judging new ideas by past standards. What worked for Grandpa might be safe, but it guarantees we will never improve upon Grandpa's status either. It is necessary to lean toward the future and anticipate standards which will be practical for tomorrow. Even casual reading will demonstrate that for you, the principle of Pragma Psychics will 1. Socially free you from unproductive and unsatisfying commitments and substitute a self-reliant and unobligated identity which will serve to inspire and encourage others. 2. Economically tear away all dependence upon whims and manipulations of others, supplying you instead with the confidence of self-sufficiency and abundance now. 3. Physically wipe away your body-rusting emotions which now imperil healthy and happy living, channeling the flow of inner wisdom into an aesthetic and fulfilling manifestation of the life purposes now hidden beneath a facade of phony busyness. 4. Spiritually provide you with freedom from outdated ritual and dogma and introduce you into a new mystical relationship with your Creator. And through this source enable you to realize your own personal spiritual potential. It offers a uniquely American mysticism and psychology clearly envisioned in early literature, but largely ignored through preoccupation with materialism. Breaking the 4-minute mile or the sound barrier was absolutely impossible until we got rid of Grandpa's practical concept that man could not physiologically attain those speeds. Grandpa convinced his sons it couldn't be done, and therefore Paavo Nurmi and Glenn Cunningham of yesteryear failed to break that mark. Gunder Haig's mark of 4014 in 1945 clearly demonstrated that insurmountable psychological barrier. 10 years later, as a new, unadulterated generation of athletes took over, Roger Bannister cracked the barrier and ran the mile at 3:59.4, not because he was healthier or stronger, but largely because in that psychic sense, he didn't know any better. He ran with a clear vision unclouded by the brainwashing to which his predecessors had been subjected. New heights are always being attained as mankind destroys archaic notions and traditions. Pragma Psychics is the safe reasoning process to eliminate outdated beliefs. Your Pragma Psychic initiation will open 16 new sources of power to you. Your decision to revamp your life along Pragma Psychic principles will present you with a whole new view of mental and psychic activities. As you shed the limited life you have led within your intellectual concepts, you will pragmatically encounter mental and psychic powers you never knew existed. In orderly progression, you will find new energies, powers, and influences flowing to you and through you from each and all of 16 important sources into your experience as follows. 1. Powers from intuition. Rites of initiation have never been mysterious, abstract, and full of mumbo-jumbo. Your initiation may surprise you with its simplicity. It makes all life and the processes of living so simple you may feel incredulous. We will unfold the mystic process slowly to allow you to visualize and fully understand this brief but exceeding powerful transformation of your entire thought processes. Once this transformation begins, your miracles will pop out about you automatically. 2. Powers of creativity. Doing what you are told to by habit or thought pressures of tradition or fashion is not creative. You will learn to be creative anywhere, in any circumstances, and doing almost anything creative action banishes boredom, fatigue, and despair, which are the products of non-creativity. How much happiness would flow into your life if you used your creative powers to produce a verdant, productive ranch and a fortune in oil? Dorothy T. managed that during the darkest period in her life. 3. Miracle powers of inspiration. In our era of controlled news media, it is often difficult to get publicity for stories of true miracles when they seem incredible. Were the Russians really the first orbiting astronauts? You can read in Chapter 5 how they were actually beaten in this feat by about 300 years by Sir Isaac Newton. Learn how you can develop the fine miracle-working powers which make it possible for you to experience this kind of inspiring miracle in your life with Pragma Psychics. 4. Powers of personal freedom. Psychic powers require complete personal freedom. I could do so much more if only. The magic switch you can turn on to gain total freedom from all ties and bonds is so simple, it will amaze you. Its application would be meaningless to you without the process of transformation of the initiation. 5. Powers of the psychic center. Psychic powers of inner security, influence, and control, prophecy, infallibility, psychic alchemy, magnetism for abundance, eternal energy, and supernatural wisdom are available from inner wisdom. Use them to influence and control others. As an insurance man turns away vicious dogs, or as June T uses them to save her job and even get a raise in the bargain. These powers are even now working in your life, prodding your thoughts with hints, hunches, and random ideas. Organize these awesome powers today and begin to enjoy living at the super self level now. 6. Powers from psychic energy fuels. The new super consciousness will relieve you from your present reliance upon physical nervous energy for your activities. Operating on the limitless psychic energy fuels available to every initiate, you will never know fatigue, boredom, or exhaustion. What you now consider work will become exciting and exhilarating joy. Learn how to call upon these cosmic fuel sources whenever the slightest need arises. 7. Powers for peace and healing. Once you understand the occult nature of illness and disease, there will be no need of your ever accepting these conditions. Say the word and it will be so. You can cast spells and could influence others greatly once you learn this technique. You can also protect yourself from this kind of attack. 8. Powers with magic psychic tools. You live every moment of every day according to certain symbols which act as push buttons to push you in one direction and then another. Once you learn to recognize just what these symbols are in your life, you can then completely transform your life by simply altering or replacing the symbols by which your life is run. Build a whole new life by dealing yourself a few new cards. This system is described in Chapter 10. 9. Superhuman power ingredients. As in the Nathaniel Hawthorne story, The Great Stone Face, we become what we idolize. We dream of imitating some special hero. After you learn the real power ingredients which work to build these famous individuals, you will suddenly realize that you need not imitate anyone. Instead, you will be greater than any of those you once idealized. You will, in an amazing instant, find yourself worth at least $1 million per minute. 10. The power of instant abundance. The greatest wealth of the ages was created instantly by a single thought. You will learn that secret in your studies of Pragma Psychics. It will help you uncover vast abundance which you probably don't realize you have right now. Martha McN struggled methodically and intelligently for a secure and happy future. Stumbling across this occult truth, she instantly realized the presence of all the security and happiness she had anticipated, but she had it right now. 11. The powers of superpersonality. Each initiate will have a special mission in life and therefore will have a unique personality designed to accomplish and fulfill that mission. There are, however, 7 basic virtues of all superpowered personalities, and each will awaken a psychic power to enrich and enlighten your daily experience. 12. Powers of instant living. You can learn to live at a faster and more dynamic pace with more varied and constructive experience. The same principles are involved as in learning speed reading. You can live on a skip and scan basis through Pragma Psychics. All living should be fun without drudgery or fatiguing routine, and with the daily essence of certain magic. The superpower life is just this, and promises you a fun career, propelled unerringly by a mystical computer and guided by the greatest occultist of all time. 13. The powers of personal invincibility. A 7-word decree is all you need to turn on the powers of invincibility, which will create a new world about you. Of course, words are only that, words until you understand the psychic application and occult forces which respond to such spoken words. Once you've accepted this power in your life, the way will open for you to achieve the special, fabulous goals set for you and every other initiate in these superpowers. When your eyes have been thus opened, you will see clearly the power inherent in a superpower truth, which would otherwise be confusing, paradoxical, and shocking. That strange truth is the admonition that you accept the truth that everyone is right. Impossible. Read on and become enlightened. This occult secret is the power behind our space travel achievements, our supernatural mission as a nation, and the cosmic assurance that America will always survive all threats and discord. 14. The powers of mental magic. Many experiments and practices you will try with Pragma Psychics will be in the category of attention getters. These will include mentally controlling others, creating conditions for personal success, predicting horse races and rising or falling stocks, foreseeing fabulous investment opportunities, and performing fantastic feats of strength. These are not misuses of super wisdom, but this parlor game existence will soon bore you if your efforts are concentrated upon this limited place of phenomenon. Indulge in these practices until you achieve a deep personal confidence in your control of these powers, and then move on to bigger and more challenging projects. 15. Spiritual powers. Before you tire of physical phenomena, you will need the challenge of greater projects. In the higher realms of the spirit, as in any school, the initiate can understand and control these higher and stronger powers. Only after learning about and becoming familiar with the powers on lower, grosser levels, when you reach this stage of your development, you will begin to feel your new consciousness. As a Pragma Psychic mystic, you will see through the illusion of public demonstration mediums. You will understand their plight, feel compassion for their feeble blunderings, but know with an infallible confidence that their failures in no way threaten or discredit your true mediumistic powers. You will continue to get absolutely accurate answers, move in confidence of spirit guidance, and perform your mystical services in the public good without doubt or fear of stumbling. You will apply your new spiritual powers and establish an enriching personal contact with the world beyond. 16. The powers of eternal security. Initiates have a firm covenant with the Supreme Creator for eternal personal security. This covenant has been available to all mankind in written form for over 20 centuries. Yet men have always lived in a frenzy of fear, anguish, and misery. The true provisions of this security treaty are presented in detail in Chapter 18. When you finally accept the truth of your own immortality, you will instantly see that you are eternally safe. The Order of the Phoenix. The hierarchy of masters founded the supernatural nation of the United States of America, gave this country the occult documents which have released superpowers, and now have arranged for you to be born for this lifetime in this mystical land. All of this preparation is for the purpose of now contacting you from the higher realms, and to provide guidance toward your destiny. You were guided to read this, just as specifically as I was led to compile it, and was inspired to write these words for your benefit and self-awakening. It is still within your power of personal choice to put this book aside, and thereby to ignore and avoid your new future, but the Order has gone to great lengths to prepare you for this time. And now, to make available to you the key guidance to exciting and fulfilling personal psychic powers. Complete acceptance of this initiation process on your part can lead to your own eventual attainment of affiliation with the Order of Phoenix in their work for the cosmic evolution of mankind. Your rejection of these overtures will simply mean you will miss the boat and bumble on through life as you have been. Perhaps you'll be inspired to wake up to your true destiny during your next lifetime in this cycle. But if this message has struck a chord in your karmic memory, then you will read on for understanding of basic Pragma Psychic principles which will plant, nurture, and grow true super self powers in your daily activities and experience. While men are dreaming, they do not perceive it as a dream. Some will even have a dream within a dream, and only when they awake do they know it was all a dream. And so only when the Great Awakening comes upon us shall we know this life be a great dream. Fools believe themselves to be awake now. Zhuangzi, 350 BC. This is the long prophesied New Age, with a rising tide of new old souls ready to herald that Great Awakening. Terms such as quickening and enlightenment have been used, but few suspected that the New Age would take the form it has. Speculations included a dispensation of great wisdom from the other, or from occupants of flying saucers. The appearance of another Messiah has also been anticipated. The key word of the New Age is now. Instead, this fabulous New Age is literally rising from the ground. Fabled powers of a bright new world are popping out of young hearts and minds, loosened and freed from hoary and oppressive tentacles of religious and political hierarchies. The Middle Agers and Old Agers are the last brainwashed and manipulated serf generations. When the New Agers take over, there will be no more Vietnams or anything like it. After this religious revolution, a man will worship and practice his faith as he personally feels and reasons with scant regard for obsolete doctrines and antiquated spiritual dictators. The New Age man is a now man and will test his faith and creed for this life. A fantastic future is ahead. Scientific, artistic, and social discoveries and progress during the past 30 years were fabulous, but all were really primitive compared with what is to come. Man's technological progress thus far has been primarily on a surface intellectual level. This process assumes that each leader or teacher can add to the student's knowledge. In the New Age, this will not be feasible. Student and teacher have to cover so much ground in so short a time, this me-you differential disappears. With the Great Awakening, all students will become individual sources of wisdom. The revolution will take over without a shot within the next 10 years as the New Agers get the vote. Are you prepared for these changes? Are you prepared to adjust to some really traumatic changes? You may have to accommodate your way of life to some of the following dramatic innovations. 1. New adult voters today will pay twice as much into Social Security as they can ever hope to collect. 30 million young voters may vote, therefore, to abolish Social Security entirely. 2. College professors find it increasingly difficult to suggest to a freshman student a vocation because so many entirely new job classifications are being created. So if the professor can't provide such answers, the student demands a greater personal role in the search. 3. In a field like medicine, statistics indicate that 85% of patients seeking medical services may get well while awaiting medical attention. Also, half of those conditions needing treatment or medication are iatric or doctor-induced or psychosomatic in origin. With such weapons to begin with, plus million-dollar court judgments now making hospitals and doctors poor insurance risks, the medical profession faces dramatic plastic surgery. A large group of young medical graduates at a recent medical association conference promised to wield a sharp scalpel in the process. 4. Contrary to primitive cultures, the American New Ager is not atheistic in his revolt against tradition. Indeed, he seeks spiritual resources as no other generation has. The difference is that pat answers and squeaky credos are a thing of the past. The New Ager demands the same updating in his religion that he observes taking place in all other phases of his community living. How to survive. What has a chance of surviving? Whatever it is will have a living, changing, and creative nature. creed, standards, or institutions designed to perpetuate themselves will never survive tomorrow unless the basic nature is adaptable to changing concepts. The New Ager will judge everything against the principles outlined here in Pragma Psychics. A new free way of thinking. If the creative powers are left unobstructed by the rules involved, an idea or institution will be accepted. If it dictates behavior or establishes artificial limitations, it will die. The basic analogy of Pragma Psychics. Stretch out a hand in front of you. Count the fingers. I hope you still have 5. One by one, slowly flex each individual finger. What did the flexing? Was it the muscles or tendons or nerves? Did the commands to flex come from the wrist joint, the elbow, or the brain? The source of all psychological function is the brain. Extend this analogy just one step further and you will be able to visualize the basic concept of Pragma Psychics. When a physiological command comes from the brain, we say, I give the command to my body. This suggests that you consider the physical brain to be the seat of operation for what you call I. Is this really true? There's overwhelming evidence now that eventually organ transplants can be expanded to include transplants of a physical brain. What then? In all practical sense, you must admit that there is a bigger you than can be seen in your physiological body. For very practical purposes, the Pragma Psychic student extends that first simple analogy by sitting in a comfortable chair and extending both arms and both legs into his field of vision. Now visualize a super type of man holding out a huge hand, a hand with 4 fingers, with this entity's wrist right where your head now lies. Imagine those 4 huge fingers, your 2 arms and 2 legs, flexing and twisting on command. Now, where are those commands coming from? From the wrist, your head, or would they come from this super person's brain? Where would that be? Become acquainted with the super you. Pragma Psychic studies introduce you to a source of wisdom and guidance fantastically superior to any earthbound school, foundation, ivory tower, or self-anointed hierarchy. You'll become acquainted with your super counterpart by unfolding your true identity. For once the mother, I would rather do it myself. Seekers are to come into their own. The initiates operate under the guidance of a cosmic inner wisdom, which is available to you, as is the nearest library. You deprive yourself of knowledge by ignoring the library, and you deprive yourself of inner wisdom by denying your super self-identity. Pragma Psychic basic principles will guide you. An exercise in Pragma Psychic logic. Now we will demonstrate these principles of this new system of thinking and learning on a project involving a mental concept. The question, what is truth? Selection of this concept for development has a twofold purpose. First is an essential test to help you evaluate the philosophy of Pragma Psychics, and second, the evolution of each individual to find truth for himself, which is the sun and substance of Pragma Psychics. Search for truth is universal. The issue of what is truth and what is not truth is probably the most emotional, crucial, and controversial issue in life, dating back through all history. The basic function of Pragma Psychics philosophy is to separate as clearly as possible the two areas on any given subject as A, what we think or believe about that subject, and B, what we know in an almost mystical sense about it. Where do you rightly divide the truth? Truth has been a historical issue. The Crusades were promoted as the armed defense of the truth, at least what those Crusaders believed the truth to be. Does this mean that the enemy Turks were therefore blind to all truth? The excesses of the Inquisition and the Salem witchcraft trials were imposed in the name of truth. Deep down, you are totally convinced that Inquisition and witch trial victims were consciously espousing anti-truth? Can you smugly assume that they knew they were wrong, yet for twisted mental reasons purposely flouted the authority of their societies? On the other hand, is it possible for you to consider that just possibly the wretch on the rack and the woman burning at the stake were really convinced that their causes were true? Can you perhaps speculate the chance that the preacher prosecuting from the pulpit and the woman in the dock were both living the truth as they each individually believed it to be? The philosopher Kierkegaard predicted more than 100 years ago that men would become fearful of solitude and huddle in ever larger social groups, and that each social group would move to establish their collective prejudices as criteria for truth in their sphere. The psychiatrist Otto Rank insisted that no truth is supportable unless it is philosophically justified by an underlayer of myth. Does this cited confrontation mean that because truth is not identical within two factions, that one must destroy or eviscerate the other? The fight over truth continues today. Though I hear you suggest that those examples are old, we know the truth better now. Those things cannot happen now. What about the issue of Vietnam, or the colossal issue of capitalism versus communism? From that point, we can move to civil rights or federal spending, abortion, and a million factional religious issues. Can the Israelis and the Arabs both be acting in defense of truth? The New Ager recognizes that deliberations, trials, and confrontations of the past have never really settled anything. These fractious encounters have merely sown seeds for new hostility in a later, perhaps more virulent form. The Pragma Psychic process begins with the acceptance of a simple basic principle to be applied in further thoughtful deliberation. First principle: what is right varies from culture to culture. What is legal varies from society to society. What is truth varies from man to man. An instant purge for irritations. Once this principle is really accepted, you will find many mental hang-ups dissipating their nagging irritations in your life. You will at least entertain the possibility that in the same respect that you have Democrats and Republicans, Christians and Jews, white and colored, day and night, all opposites can be tolerated. How extreme can opposites become when you consider this last pair of time periods? And yet each period has been adapted to its own unique purposes, and indeed they melt slowly into each other through the dawn and again at dusk. Don't force Pragma Psychics, let it absorb. Pragma Psychics will work only if you don't try too hard to understand all details immediately. Contemplation upon the above first principle will allow it to sink slowly into your consciousness, and you will suddenly sense a mental relaxation. You find that the sense of this first principle is applicable to any question. Whatever the issues involved, truly each of us believes our own position to be right and in the light of truth. Truth is in the mind of the believer, and you're convinced that the essence of the first principle has a firm foundation in your thinking. Then move on to the second principle, which is truth is to the believer what beauty is to the beholder. Do you see the rhythm of intellectual sequence in these two preliminary principles? Now it is clear why total absorption of the first principle into your thought processes is necessary before taking the second step in reasoning. The significance and functional utility of the second principle depends upon full understanding and acceptance of the first. Common ground for truth is unnecessary. Your neighbor may consider roses beautiful while they give you rose fever, or he might agree with your opinion as to the beauty of your wife to the point of physical conflict between the two of you. The same elements of reasoning or non-reasoning probably exist between you two on the subjects of taxes, the virgin birth and the Trinity, smog control, birth control pills, Vietnam, today's educational system, traffic safety, ad infinitum. Truly, it can be paraphrased, truth is in the mind of the believer. Anything that you deeply and basically believe is truth to you. It is not necessarily what you say you believe, or what you publicly pledge to support. In public, you may ridicule the possible existence of flying saucers. You may even contribute funds to Down with Unidentified Flying Object Society. At the same time, you may spend several evenings per month sitting out in the backyard scanning the dark skies and hoping, just in case, to this man, what is the truth about flying saucers? Is it what he says about it, or what he publicly does about it? Truly, it is plain that the truth about flying saucers to this man is what his super self is telling him down deep within his mind and soul. Contrary to his honest belief, our skyscanner is practicing hypocrisy most of the time. His verbal attacks and financial support of propaganda group work to discourage and oppose all efforts of others who on an honest level admit a belief identical to that which our friend secretly holds to be true. Why is this? New Agers are opposed to hypocrites and practice of hypocrisy. Initiates have no need to practice hypocrisy, as they can be self-confident and assured that their inner wisdom is always true. Your world is just what you believe it to be. Despite mutual training and experience, no two individuals live in exactly the same world. To one, the sky seems darker blue. To the other, some odor seems more pleasant. One man lives contentedly on a few $100s, while his neighbor fumes over a 65% income tax on his huge profits. One sees his cup half full, and the other is always at least half empty. The effect of any set of circumstances on your life depends solely upon your attitude towards those circumstances. The secret of controlling your whole world is revealed in the truth that you can choose your attitude. The circumstance elicits a particular attitude. If the circumstance changes, it alters the attitude. By reverse logic, you thereby create your own circumstances by adjusting and changing your attitude. A new attitude elicits a new circumstance. How to listen to wisdom of the ages. Thus, we attain another plateau in our deliberations upon the nature of truth with the third principle of Pragma Psychics. The truth is private and intimate. It is therefore secret to each individual. When Jesus, Elijah, or Buddha needed guidance, not one of them consulted a psychiatrist, professor, priest, or politician. The history records make this very clear. These mighty souls of the past all sought truth in the same precise manner. They didn't mumble mantras, shout incriminations, or appeals, nor did they purchase any dispensations. They entered the silence. Primarily, they just shut up. They waited in patient solitude for their super self to convey inner wisdom to them. And they listened. Today's babbling masses raise a cacophony through which inner wisdom can never pierce, shouting, "I know, listen to me, this is the way." A veil hides American destiny. Some years ago, Lin Yutang enumerated the three major weaknesses he saw in Americans. 1, a compelling hope for wealth, and 2, insistence upon absolute perfection, and 3, always being on time. He pointed out that any external force which dangled any of these three promises or controlled their fulfillment in any way could sway and manage the American people as a whole. These have become, over the past 200 years, the modern great American gods. Manipulators of the masses long ago learned the secret. No external possessions ever really provide satisfaction. Anticipation of acquiring them creates an illusion of future contentment. Once they are possessed, the contentment is gone. It existed only in the act of anticipation. We merely anticipate the illusion of our contentment, which in turn requires even more possessions. If contentment is ever to come from possessions, it can come now with your present possessions. From this vista, the New Age philosophy can be discerned in much sharper delineations. Sparked by thoughtful reasoning of fast-moving technology, the New Age initiate will see a logical fourth principle of truth. Fourth principle: our culture breeds instant obsolescence. Therefore, any concept attracting public acclaim is suspect of already being obsolete. In an age based on speed and obsolescence, the survivors learn to limit their efforts at living to an instant now. We see and experience a beautiful sunrise only now. We taste the delicious tang of a ripe fruit now. We feel the warmth of a ray of sun only now. We remember the sunrise, that sweet taste of orange, or the warm sun for an instant now. We anticipate these experiences for ourselves for tomorrow or next week, but we sense these thought forms only now. Now is all that exists or will ever exist. Yet we virtually live in the consciousness of the past or the future. Now is all that will ever exist, but we try to keep ourselves living in either the past or the future. Our failure to accomplish this feat keeps us bewildered, frustrated, and depressed. We must reorganize our thinking to realize that reality is now and occurs at no other time. The New Age of Intuition. Unless we were to claim access to universal knowledge, we must agree there will always be a limit to the quantity of information one person or one group can collect on a given subject. Life as it is lived today will not await even a superficial survey by an appointed committee on a topic requiring a decision. Survival requires gathering all the facts and data immediately available, making a careful evaluation with guidelines of past experience, projected speculation, and acquired instincts. Finally, a conclusion is accepted which appears best suited to circumstances and influences. On an intellectual level, man will never achieve access to this unlimited universal knowledge. It is necessary, as Pragma Psychics demonstrates, to place your reliance upon the super-intellectual source which created all this potential knowledge. The entity of your super self surmounting this mundane intellectual level has access through inner wisdom to universal guidance. Through the intuition rights and refinements which follow almost automatically, this super self identity will become more real and more dependable to you than your intellect. The case for freedom from surface intellect. The greatest danger in the lives of medical school graduates in their intern assignments in hospitals is that of patient empathy and identification. Particularly when treating conditions with the added danger of communicability, a young intern is quite likely to develop symptoms of disease identical with those of his patients. Few interns survive their service without periodic illnesses. In contrast, you will witness thousands of experienced nurses and doctors working with dread diseases for years without harm. Surface analysis credits improved personal hygiene, and this serves its part. But the principal reason lies in the ability of experienced medical people to disengage themselves from deep personal involvement with ill patients. Lacking this identity, they can treat the ill with dispassionate concern and without self-exposure. Herein lies the key to unlocking super self-experience. Disengaging ourselves from the whims and emotional bonds of others is not easy. To live at the level of your highest potential becomes effortless once you accomplish this personal freedom. Flying in a supersonic airliner high in space, you feel no concern about the thousands of scurrying individuals far below. They may be sad or happy, or somewhere in between, but you are not aware or involved with any of them. Should any of them desire to share this unconcerned level of living you're enjoying, then advise them to buy a ticket and shed their low earthbound existence. They may fear flying, or they may feel in bondage to surface commitments. This is no fault of yours or of your advice to them, since their personal freedom is as available to them as yours has been to you. Speak the word and it will be so. The story of Aladdin and his magic lamp and the legend of Ali Baba and his magic cave are well known. There is perhaps no one in the world who has not at one time or another fervently wished he might own such a lamp, and would bring the great genii into manifestation with power to grant one's slightest wish and desire. But the tragic truth is that each human has at his own personal beck and call the same type of power, capable of performing every miracle of Aladdin's genie and even more. Whatever you wish to call it, it lies asleep within you, ready to supply your every need, provided you are willing to learn how to contact it, how to use it, and when to use it. Just as electricity turns on the inert electric bulb, or the steam activates the locomotive, this power will motivate you to astounding accomplishments if you will just let it turn on in your life. A person under hypnotism can be laid across two chairs and support heavy men standing upon his middle. Awake, he struggles to lift 100 pounds. Under fear, a young boy will easily scale a high wall against which he can only struggle futilely under more calm circumstances. A losing athletic team can suddenly become a winning juggernaut. They just turn on power. That man could accomplish just as great a feat of strength without being hypnotized by someone else. But he would, in effect, hypnotize himself. Under this self-induced spell, he can believe in the power of his super self to do this feat. With his mind thus cleared of all fear and doubt, there is no obstacle to a successful performance. These powers involve responsibility. Buddha cautioned against giving too much esoteric truth to the unenlightened. For the same reason, Jesus taught the multitudes in parables. For it is an occult law that if you open a vision of miracle truth to a man's understanding, and then that man rejects the truth even after he sees it, that man is severely penalized and slips backward in his cosmic development. In spiritual truth, therefore, it is the responsibility of a teacher to ascertain the readiness of a student for higher wisdom before any attempt is made to disclose that wisdom. When the unready are offered enlightenment, they may not only reject it, but with the knowledge of such truth, devise means of attacking its teachings. This delays and limits the progress of others, and may even create an anti-truth or force of darkness. While this black activity lacks any cosmic substance and therefore causes the self-destruction of its perpetrators, true progress is too often hindered and hampered. To accept the concept of inner wisdom within you and working through you, and yet appeal for external help in your activities will rebound against you. If your super self is working within you, no other help will be necessary or appropriate. Therefore, before you decide to move on into the initiation rites, give this admonition careful thought. These initiation rites are not for the casual reader. The Buddha and the Christ have warned ominously against the teachings or revealing of the mysteries to the unprepared. As it brings rebound harm to both student and teacher, it is better to avoid such illumination than to gain understanding of these secrets and then consciously block their implementation in your life. There is a whole lot more that's indicated in this book. The next chapter is an initiation, describing the process of initiation in occult practices. And then it discusses things like freedom, secret pathways to new psychic forces, how to apply mystic energies for cosmic propulsion, how to open occult channels for peace and healing. I may come back to these in a future episode, as I love to do. There's a lot of really interesting techniques in this, and I just wanted to give you the first couple chapters and open it up a little bit. It's always fun to listen to those old books, and hopefully you got something out of it. The Parker Publishing books are amazing, and there's so many great writings that are lost to the ages that are not being published anymore, and it's unfortunate. In any case, I'd love to know if you'd like me to explore this further. You can find every episode on YouTube, as well as therealityrevolution.com. If you're on YouTube, just click on videos and you can check out the whole order of all the videos. There's so many playlists. So let me know if you have any future requests for future episodes. If you can, check out the Aura program that has a link in the description for further meditations and additional material. Sending out love to everybody, and welcome to the Reality Revolution.